and I've been asked today to come to talk to you about Sage Research Methods, which is a database that you've had at EUI probably for just over a year now. And it's designed to help you with your research projects. My email address and contact details are at the bottom of the screen there, so if you want to make a note of those, that's absolutely fine. But generally my job is to train students, researchers and librarians and faculty on this database and help them understand how they might get the most from it. So hopefully by the end of the session today, you'll be really familiar with the database and be confident enough to go and be doing your own searches for interesting content. So this is what we'll be covering today. I'm going to start off by giving you an introduction to Sage Research Methods just on these PowerPoint slides. I should say as well that I am recording, so I will be able to share the video with you, but I'll also share the small slide deck with you as well. There's some more detailed information that I won't be showing that's included on these slides, so you can go through these at your own time. So if anyone was going to ask that question, it's now been answered. You'll get all this material after the session. I'll then spend the majority of the time doing a live platform demonstration, showing you how to use and find some of the content and use some of our research tools. And then we've got an activity planned. We'll be looking for a resource that might be able to help us straight away with your research. So be thinking about some of the areas that you find challenging. And then towards the end, we'll have a longer period of time for any final questions and to round up the session. But I will be taking pauses as we go. So if you would like to ask me anything, please feel free and I will keep an eye on the chat box. So to warm everyone up this morning, it's interesting for me to know what everyone's level of experience is in using the Sage Research Methods platform. So I want you to open up the chat box in the way that I showed you earlier, and using the numbers 1 to 5, I would like you to give me an indication of how familiar you are or not familiar you are with the database. So 1 is no experience at all. I've not heard of it until today. Or 5 is I've used it multiple times and feel really confident with how it can help me with my research. Oh, so I'm seeing a lot of 1s coming in. A lot of 1s. A 2. That's good. It's more reassuring. Someone says, I've never heard of it. A proud maths student. Excellent. We've got a few more. We've got a couple of 2s. I'll just give that another sort of 10 seconds if people are still thinking about their answer. We've got any more people? 1. Yeah. Okay, well that's good. That's good. That gives me an indication of people's level of knowledge. So thank you for sharing your experiences. So an overwhelming majority of 1s, but a couple of 2s. So some of you have no experience, and this is the first time you've heard of it. Okay, well hopefully by the end of the session today, you'll be really familiar and really excited to start using the database. So thank you for taking the time to answer that. I've got one more question. And we'll spend a bit longer on this. But what area of research methods do you find the most challenging? So this might be how to write a literature review. It might be how to refine your research question, how to do data analysis, anything. Or it might just be what you're working on at the moment as part of your research. So I'm going to give 60 seconds, I think, or maybe 90 seconds. I'll give it 90 seconds so that people can think of something and have the time to chat, share that with us. So if you want to share what area of research methods you find the most challenging, that will enable me to guide the search queries and search terms that I'm putting into the box. So I'll give that 90 seconds. Okay, so we've got some answers coming in. Let's see, I might read a few of these out. So someone says literature reviews. Yes. Quantitative research methods. Yes, I also struggle with that. I was never strong at quantitative. Data collection. Yeah, the best way of getting the data. Designing effective research questions. Yeah, it can be really difficult to try and find a new angle or perspective. Yeah, so totally hearing you on that one. Quantitative methods will possibly fail Economics 101. Well, I'm sure you won't, fingers crossed, good luck. Statistical analysis. Oh yeah, look, I don't like statistics either. How to get the literature related to my research and data collection. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a challenge that I hear quite a lot. Finding an interesting, feasible research question. Yes, that offers that new perspective. Clarifying the research question. How to structure an effective research question and analyze data. Seems to be a theme here about perfecting a research question, refining a research question, narrowing down a topic to identify a feasible research question, organizing different ideas and mapping them. Okay, so I'm picking out, I think, a couple of themes here. So I'm thinking sort of quantitative and statistical data, how to identify and narrow down and construct a research question, organizing different ideas and mapping them, so sort of structuring a literature review. So those are sort of the three main themes that I'm hearing people say. If it helps, if it's reassuring in any way, I have been running training sessions for Sage for around about 3 years, and run several of these training sessions every year, and these challenges are things that people find difficult, regardless of the country they're in, the level of study, or how many times they've done research before. So you're not alone, and hopefully some of the things I can share with you today will help you with some of those challenges. So I really appreciate you sharing some of those with me. So let's go straight in then, and I'll introduce you to Sage Research Methods. So Sage Research Methods, in a nutshell, is a database that contains just over 6,400 resources in its entirety. And it's completely dedicated to the subject area of research methods. So a lot of you will be studying across different disciplines or different topics, or you may have come to EUI from other universities where you've already done research before. So you're probably aware that most qualifications or degrees will require some kind of research project, regardless of whether it's like a science, technology or engineering type of subject, regardless of whether it's in the arts and humanities, social sciences. The research project will look different depending on the subject area that you're in, but there will be some sort of research involved. So this makes research methods almost a universal subject area. And when we launched the database back in 2011, there wasn't really a dedicated resource that would help with students kind of trying to successfully complete a project. So we do support a wide range of topics and subjects on the platform. But think about research methods as a subject area in its own right. And I'll explain what I mean by that as I go through in terms of when I get onto the demonstration. As well as supporting a range of different subject areas, it also supports all stages of the research process. So all the stages and challenges that people shared with me in the chat, we do cover in good detail on the database. So how to write and formulate your research question, conducting a literature review, choosing the best methods, analysing that data, so quantitative and statistical data as well, writing up your results, and also thinking about publication. So how you might share the results of your research beyond the university or organisation. And if you wanted to access the database, you can see the link there just at the bottom of the screen. The next slide here just gives a quick overview of the Sage Research Methods database and how it's made up. And at EUI, you have our core module. And in core, this is what you're getting in detail if we focus in on the content. So you're getting just over 1,000 online books and reference materials. The books come in 5 different categories. So we have books and handbooks, which are essentially just full digital versions of print texts. The handbooks offer a slightly more comprehensive coverage of a specific subject area. So they go into less detail than the books, but if you just access one book, you should be able to have everything there. We also have our little blue books and little green books. So these are special to Sage in that they're a series of books. And just on a side note, when I was at EUI last year, your librarian actually showed me where you've got these on the shelf in the library. I was very excited because I've never actually seen all the print ones before. So just on a side note there, but these are like little sort of almost pamphlet sized books that give you an introduction to a particular research method or topic. So the little blue books cover qualitative research methods and the little green books cover quantitative research methods. So anyone that was shared with me issues they might be having with quantitative research methods, you can actually filter by little green books as a content type on the platform, and hopefully that might help with any sort of specific questions you might have on quantitative research. We also as well have major works. So these are volumes of curated book and journal content where we've commissioned an author or editor to put together the works on around a particular topic. So for example, we have a major work on qualitative research methods. So if you wanted to know everything you could possibly need to know about qualitative research methods, you could go and access that major work on that topic. We also have reference, so these come in 2 categories. So those are dictionaries and encyclopedias. So these are really great if you're trying to understand new research methods terminology. They're quite short entries that will help you sort of manage that process a bit more easily if you want to get to the key pieces of information that you might need. We also as well have around 390 individual journal articles and 75 videos in Sage Research Methods core. So you're getting loads of content within that module. And again, when we get onto the platform demonstration, I'll show you how to find those different content types you have access to. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so the next link here is just a prompt for me to switch over to my browser. So does anyone have any questions at the moment, just whilst I get that new screen sharing set up? And you can ask me in the chat box or you can unmute your microphone. Are there any questions at all? Let's see. Look at the chat box. Okay, I hope that means everyone's okay so far. If there is something that you're typing, please feel free to carry on and I will get to your question in the next pause. So hopefully everyone now should be able to see my screen. Just bear with me, my VPN connection has decided to go funny. Sorry. Just bear with me a minute. It's not authenticating me properly. Okay. Right, let me just refresh this page. Apologies. There we go, that's better. Sorry about that. thought I'd connected via my VPN so I could access the content. So this is the Sage Research Methods homepage. So I shared the link with you on the previous slide, which is just methods.sagepub.com. So if you click on that, this is the homepage that it's going to take you to. It will take you, bring you straight to this homepage here. And then obviously you can run your search in the search boxes here or use the browsing options to get to any of the content. However, we do make all of the materials available in your library catalogue as well. So if you go to the EUI library search website and type in your keyword search terms here, you are also going to find content from the Sage Research Methods database alongside content that you subscribe to from other publishers as well. We also make the content discoverable through common search engines such as Google. So really, no matter where you might usually start your journey in terms of finding library resources, you should be able to find content from the Sage Research Methods platform too. So I should just mention at this stage as well that if I was going to be running this session for you in person or face to face, I would usually be using one of the computers available on your network. So I'm using my own work laptop at the moment, which is designed to be able to access all of the content. You can see here that I've got the Sage Publishing logo in the top right hand corner. This for you will say EUI or have the EUI logo. So that's how you know that you've accessed the database correctly. So there may be some differences in the number of results and what my screen looks like compared to yours, but I'll try and point that out as we go through. Usually I'd prefer to show you on one of your machines just so it reflects what you're actually going to be seeing. But I'll try and explain those differences as I go through. So this is the main homepage. In terms of getting started, you can click on, if you hover over the browse menu at the top here, this will enable you to browse by using any of these three methods. So we've got the option to browse by topic, by discipline, or by content type. So browsing by topic, if you scan through the list there, you'll notice that there are some broad stages of a typical project that you may have to go through. If you were to click on any of those links here, it's going to take you through to one of our research tools called the methods map. And I'll come and look at the methods map towards the end of the presentation part. But I'll also remind you how to get to it as well. We've got the option also to browse by discipline just here in the middle. So if you're working in any of these areas or studying in any of these areas, what you can do, if I just go with nursing, just as an example, you can click on nursing, and this is going to take you through to a list of results that we think might be useful for you if you're working in that particular field, for example. What else? We also have the option to browse by content type. So if, for example, you knew that you wanted to try and find a video, you could click on video. And this is just going to take you through to a list of all the videos that you might want to have a look at and see if any of those might be useful for you. So that browse by menu will just quickly get to content on a particular topic, discipline, or content type without you having to run your own keyword search terms. So just to kind of recap on the discipline. So I mentioned that students will usually have to do some sort of research project as part of their qualification. But when you use Sage Research Methods, it's sometimes useful to think about research methods almost as a discipline in its own right. And by that, I mean that if you're searching for a particular keyword, so if I go with interview as my data collection method, the sort of practical steps that you would need to set up an interview would likely be very similar across a broad range of subject areas. So rather than be too concerned about looking at interviews related to a particular discipline, bear in mind that regardless of the subject area or discipline that you're working in, that those practical steps to set up the interview are likely to be similar across multiple disciplines. So think about the method or the area of research that you're interested in and use that as your kind of starting point rather than the discipline. So they're the ways that you might browse. But probably most of you are going to have a fairly strong idea of what you're going to be interested in. And I'm going to run my initial search here for literature review, because that was one of the challenges that people were saying they were having issues with. And this also means, you know, how to structure and formulate your ideas. I think sometimes people overlook the usefulness of the literature review when they're thinking about how to organise their thoughts, and this can be a really great place to get started, and also for helping you to refine your research question as well. Sometimes you might have a topic that you're interested in researching but don't know how to turn that into a interesting or useful research question, and often people get too focused on, you know, designing the research question, doing the literature review, collecting the data, analysing the data, and then writing it up. And sometimes the process, the different stages are sort of will inform each other. So you'll go back and make changes all the time. So don't be too concerned about getting one stage complete before you go on to the next, because all of them, everything affects each other in the research process. So by reading the literature, it will then help you refine your question and identify those gaps that will then help you design a more effective and interesting research question. So I've run my search here for literature review, and I've just done that as a phrase in the quotation marks there. So it's searching for those two words together. If I didn't have those quotation marks, it would search for literature and review separately. So you wouldn't get as relevant or useful results. So I've just searched for that, and let's see what we get. Wait for that to load. So you can see here that I've got 2,655 results. Something to bear in mind, I'm not sure how you have your access set up at EUI, but if you do ever run a search and you see a sort of padlock icon here on the top right hand corner of the content, if you click this icon here, content available to me, that will filter out any of the content that has that icon on it, so that you're only going to get materials that you can see in the full text. So we've got a couple of entries from our project planner research tool, which I will come and look at a bit later on. We've got some videos, we've got a literature review, encyclopedia, we've got a case, and then we've also got a book here, a chapter called The Literature Review from a book called Doing Your Undergraduate Research Project. So let's have a look at this book, just so we can see what a resource page is looking like. So you can see here that I've come on to the full text of the book. And as I scroll down through the centre of the screen, you can see there that I've got access to that whole chapter. So you can read the chapter on the screen. However, we also have the option for you to download our chapters and materials as a PDF as well. So if you click on the purple download PDF button, this will then open up the chapter for you in this new window. And you can see then you've got the full text PDF on the screen, and then you have the option to download the PDF to save that to a memory stick or a folder that you might have created on your computer. Sometimes that's a useful way of organizing your thoughts by theme or by folder. And also we have the option there if you want to print as well. I shouldn't press print, but then you can print that off if you prefer to make your handwritten notes. We also, if I just go back to the main page here, have an option for you to find for particular keywords in this chapter. So I'm going to search for evaluation. So that's hopefully going to give me some ideas about how I actually choose the material to include in my literature review. So what is academically rigorous, what has been peer reviewed, how do I know it's a good, credible academic resource, what sort of questions do I need to ask of the material. So if I search for evaluation, we can see that we're about halfway down, a third of the way down, and we can see where that keyword is clustered. So actually, I can really quickly see which might be the most relevant section for me in this particular chapter. Obviously, this is online. This is an online ebook. If I was to, if I had this and pick this off the library shelf, trying to make that decision as to whether it's going to be useful is going to take me a lot longer. So that's a nice feature, this looking for keywords across the full text just there. We also have the option to the right-hand side of the chapter with some interactivity icons here. So we've got the cite button. So if you wanted to use this book or chapter in your research project, we've got the option here for you to choose between 5 common referencing styles. So we've got APA, Chicago, Harvard, MLA and AMA. So if I just click on Harvard, you can see there that the reference updated to be in the Harvard referencing style. So that enables you then to just copy and paste the reference into your bibliography or reference list as part of your essay or assignment. And that's a great way of saving you time in terms of managing your references or constructing them if you're not that confident with your referencing yet. Towards the bottom of that small window, we also have the option for you to export the reference into a number of different reference management softwares. So if you are managing a larger number of references for your project, you can click on RefWorks, just as an example, click on Open, and then that will download the reference for that chapter in the usual way if you're used to using those softwares. Sorry. We also got the option, here to share. So if you wanted to send this on to a friend or a colleague because you think they might find it useful, you can enter their information here, their email address, their name, maybe write them a little message, click on send, and then that's going to email them the direct link here to the chapter on the Sage Research Methods platform, so that they don't have to start again themselves from the homepage, just to kind of quickly share the materials they might find useful. We also have the option here for the option to create lists. So one of the things you will have noticed that is when you log in, you'll have the EUI logo here, and you'll be able to access the content as part of your subscription in the books, the journal articles, and some of the videos. However, there are a few extra things that you can do on the platform that enable you to personalize or customize your experience. Now, as a researcher, when I was at university, I always found it really difficult to remember the resources that I'd already looked at before, and sometimes I'd forget to bookmark them or save them, and sometimes I'd read something, come back to it, and then find it really difficult to find what I'd already looked at before. So there's a few features that you can do that will hopefully help you overcome some of those challenges. And one of those includes the ability to create your own lists of resources. However, if you want to have access to this list feature, you will need to create a profile on the Sage Research Methods platform. And to do this, you can see I've clicked on list at the moment. It's asking me, have you created one? So if I haven't created a profile, I just need to click on the green profile button here, and then create profile from the bottom of that window, which will then open up this new page for me. And I can then enter a little bit of information about myself to get set up. And if I click on save, then that will enable the platform to recognize me as that individual user, and then I'll be all ready to go and get set up. So what I'm going to do is just log in with my own profile here, just so you can see what this looks like in practice. I'll say log in. So you now can see that instead of having the green profile button, it now says logged in my profile. So that's how I know that the platform has recognized me as that individual user. So if I click on list now, instead of prompting me to log in or register, I've now got a few extra options. So if I want to add this chapter to an existing list, so these are just some lists that I've made during other customer training sessions, I could do that, or I can create a new one. So I'll be very imaginative this morning and call this list EUI, but you can change these details later on, so don't worry if you make a mistake or want to edit anything. I'm then going to select that to private. So that means that only people I share the list with will be able to view it. And then if I click on create, I'll get this tiny message here to tell me that the list has been created. And then if I want to view any of the lists, I just need to click on my profile and then my reading lists, which will then take me through to this new page here. And we can see at the top, when this loads, the EUI reading list that I've been working on most recently. And if I go to view details, we can see there that that's the chapter that I just decided to add. So if I scroll down, you can see that I've got quite a few lists that I've been working on since I've been working for Sage. So you can create as many different lists as you like, and you can also add as many resources to one list as well. So really flexible and really easy. So it might be that you want to create one list on how to do a literature review. It might be that you want to create a list of resources that will help you formulate or design your research question. You may want to make one on statistical or quantitative data analysis, for example. So it's really up to you how you might want to structure these. So that's a really great way of you kind of saving resources that you want to come back to look at another time. You may also want to create resources or a list of resources to share with a colleague or co-researcher. So the possibilities are endless in terms of the list feature. I just want to pause again just before I go on to do a more detailed search. Are there any questions at all? Please feel free to unmute your microphone, or you can put them to me in the chat. Let's see. So someone's asked, are there any email subscriptions so that one can get the latest publication from Sage Research Methods? So we don't have an email subscription. We only do an update of the platform every year between January and March, and those updates just go live as soon as they're ready. So we don't do any sort of alerting, if that's what you meant by that question. But you will just automatically get those updates as long as you have that as long as you have the active subscription to Sage Research Methods. We just do that annual update. I hope that answers your question. I'm having issues logging in. Is it possible using your own PC, or should we use a PC EUI? There should be the experience should be the same for you off campus as it is on campus. Sometimes if you're off campus, there may be an extra layer of logging in, but if you are having any issues logging in, it might be useful to put those to someone on the EUI library team, because there shouldn't be any issues regardless of whether you're using a personal laptop or one of the PCs at EUI. So they might ask you for some screenshots or just to explain that process in a bit more detail, but I can tell you that there should be no issues. So hopefully they might be able to troubleshoot what any issues that you might be having, but speak to someone in your library and I'm sure they'll be happy to help. Are there any other questions at all? And you can unmute your microphone if you want, or use the chat. So I think someone from the library has just put a link into the chat box, and that shows you how to access resources on and off campus. And it looks like that's all of the resources you have, as well as Sage Research Methods. So yeah, follow that link or bookmark that link, because I think that would be really useful for you guys to be aware of. But thanks for providing that support. So I think I'll leave it there just for this break. So I've come back to the Sage Research Methods homepage, and just a quick tip for you. If you're anywhere on the platform where you are, anything above this sort of green line will stay the same. So if you ever get a bit stuck or a bit lost or want to start again, you can just click on the Sage Research Methods logo here, and that's going to bring you back to the homepage, and that will help you kind of refresh and get started again. So that's what I've done, and it's just brought me back to the home page here. So I think what I'm going to do, I am going to run a search this time for research question. Now this is actually a search that I've never done before, so I don't know what sort of results we're going to get. So I want to search for that, and let's see, because I want to see if I can show you how to use some of these filters here to refine your search. Let's see. It looks like there might be some things that might be useful. So we've got an entry here. How do I develop a research question? Your research question. So some of these videos won't be part of your subscription, but if you click content available to me, that will get rid of any of those if you're, depending on how you've got your access set up. Okay, so I know that you'll be able to access these project planner entries and this encyclopedia, for example. So I think this will be a really great starting point for you. So do definitely have a look at those. How do I know if my research question is suitable? There you go. So that should be quite a good one. So what I want to do now is just have a look at some of these filters here. So you'll notice the publication date filter just allows you to select a date range from when your resources were published. So I'll go from 2010 to 2020. So I think that's taken off 1,000 or so, just by going from resources published in the last 10 years. We also have the option to filter by discipline. So this, if I just go back up to the top and hover over browse, these are the same disciplines that you can browse by from the Sage Research Methods homepage, but we also have them as a filter available after you've run your own keyword search term as well. So if you wanted to filter by a particular discipline, if you unselect the box there and then just click into the two that you want, the couple or one that you want to look at, that will then just update the results for you. And then we also have the content type filter here. So this will allow you to filter by a specific content type. So if, for example, we wanted to have a look at just books, if you unselect select all and then click into books, that's going to filter out any items that will help you, that will just be on books. And we can see here that we've got a nice chapter here coming up with a research question. And although this is on psychology, how to formulate and how to design an interesting research question is a challenge that all students face, regardless of their topic, regardless of their subject. So don't be too concerned that it's focused in psychology, because there will be really useful advice that will be transferable to you if you wanted to have a look at that as well. So I think do have a look at that, considering your research question. So that's for early, using research in early years, but a lot of that will be relevant for you, as I say, regardless of the discipline. So do have a look at that. So you can see that we're just filtered by that particular content type or the book. If I just go back and make sure that we're all selected. Also, we've got reference materials. So again, these are dictionaries, encyclopedias. So if I wanted to get a short definition of what a research question is or some tips, you can see that we've got some books here. So if I click on research question, this will be a nice short entry that will talk about how to choose the right research question and you can see justifying the question. So you can see that it's not a very long entry at all. So there might be some quick tips that you want to have a look at there, but you can see the page layout is very similar to the chapter that we looked at. So they're your dictionaries, encyclopedias. They're nice and short entries. So it'll just contain like a really good starting point for you, or sort of the bare bones of the information that you might need to get started. Go back in. And then let's filter by, I think let's filter by, you've also got journal articles within your Sage Research Methods core subscription and video as well. So I want to see if we've got any videos. Let's see if we've got any videos. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can find one that I know is part of your subscription. If not, I will just select one and we can just have a look at a video. Don't think I'm going to find one. I'm going to try. I'll just go on this first page. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is just open up this one here, developing a research question. So this isn't a video that's part of your subscription, but the layout of the video page will be very similar regardless of the video that you select. I just couldn't find one on that first page as part of the 75 that you have access to at EUI. But this is your typical video page. So you'll have the video pane in the middle of the screen here. And then to the right hand side, you've got the video transcript. So this is quite a nice short example. So if I just press, I'm going to mute, if I just press play, you'll notice that as the video is going through, the transcript here on the right hand side is following along in yellow with where the video is. So this makes it really easy for you to kind of stay up to date and understand what's involved at that part of the research process. And understand where you are in the video as well. It's a great sort of navigation tool. So we've got the option here as well to search within the transcript for a keyword. So if I just search a question, we can see it's a short video, but you can see exactly where your keyword occurs. And then you can also click on the section in yellow there, and then that's going to jump you to the relevant section of the video. So you can skip ahead to a section that might be a bit more relevant for you. Some of these videos can be sort of up to 40 minutes, 50 minutes long. So if this was a longer example, you may just want to use that finding this transcript to jump to a section that might be the most relevant for you. The videos themselves are streaming only, so you do need to have an internet connection to be able to watch them. However, you can download the video transcript as a PDF, and that works in exactly the same way as we saw with the book chapter earlier. So you can see there that you've got the short video transcript there. We also, to the top of the screen, have a number of interactivity buttons. So if you wanted to get a citation for this video, you can click on Cite in the same way as we saw with the book chapter. You can also add videos to lists, share them as well. And then we also have a couple of extra things here. These are probably more relevant for you if you're maybe involved in teaching a group of students rather than as an independent researcher, but I'll just cover them in a bit of detail. So if you wanted to link to this video directly with a permalink, we've got that option here. For the librarians or teaching staff on the call, it is possible to put in your institutional proxy information that will pre-populate the link with that. So that if you do use that permalink feature, it's going to prompt and redirect your students to the proxy login page if they haven't already logged in already. So just something to bear in mind if you did want to explore those sort of permalink options. We also have the embed feature here. So if you're using a virtual learning environment or learning management system, often somewhere where students and researchers might go and log in to access their course materials, submit their essays and assignments, learn about any sort of topics or materials that are sort of upcoming in the week in the weeks as they progress through a module, for example, you can actually share library resources and videos in there as well. Let me just refresh this. I'm not sure. I'm just missing something. Just bear with me. Hopefully that might. fix it. Just bear with me a second. Okay, there we go. So if I click on embed, what this will do is provide me with a small piece of embed code, which I can really easily copy and paste into the relevant section of the virtual learning environment or learning management system that I may be using. And what that allows you to do is embed the video within that environment so that you're not having to redirect students back to the database itself. And I'm just going to open up this screenshot, and this just gives you a nice example of what that might look like. So this is taken from the Canvas VLE, which is a common virtual learning environment that universities are using, but it's a similar layout to other examples such as Moodle and Blackboard. So you would organise your materials by course and page, and that's what the book would look like just there. Sorry, the video would look like just there if it was embedded. So just a few extra options there that are quite special to video. Now, this is quite a short example of a video. It's only 1 minute, 23 seconds long. But as I mentioned, some of our videos are a little bit longer. But there's a really nice feature that I think that's related to video called Create Clip. So what this will allow you to do is grab your own section of a video. So I might actually just go and find a different example, maybe from a video that's a bit longer. So I'm going to just find a longer video. I'm just going to go with interviews as my search term, just so we can find a longer example. It seems a bit silly taking a small clip from a 1 minute 23 video. So let's see. So I'm going to go to content type, and then I'm going to filter by video. So we're getting a longer video. So let's see what we can find here. We've got a video. Here we go. So this is one of the, I know that this is one of the videos that you have access to as part of your subscription. So this is let's load. So this is a 14-minute video. So it's very likely there may be a smaller section of this one that might be more relevant for you. So if I click on create clip beneath the video, you can see then that this opens up some options here for me. So if you watch these start and end times here, as I drag these sliders, you'll notice that they automatically update to reflect the section of video that I have selected. So I've got a random 2 minute 44-second clip just there, but that's just a random selection. But when you're happy with your selection, make sure you're logged into your profile as well. You will need to be logged into your profile, so you can use that for creating video clips and for creating your own reading lists as well. So make sure you're logged in. When you're happy with your selection, you can just click on save, and that will then allow you to save the clip straight to a list or to an area called My Clips, which is essentially just a reading list for any video clips that you've created. So if I save that straight to a list, and I'm going to save that to my EUI list, so find that in the drop-down menu, click on Add, and then I'll get the little message there to tell me that my clip has been successfully saved. And then if I go to my profile and then my reading lists, I can see that EUI is at the top, and it now has 2 resources on it. So if that's a load. So if I go to view details, there's the chapter that I added earlier, and here's the clip that I just created as well. So what is conversational interviewing? So if I click on the title, this will then take me through to a specially created clip page, and you can see that I've got this sort of little add-on to the end of the link or URL. And then if I look at the start and end times on the video, you can see that those are the ones that I selected from the original full-length video. So there you've got your own clip. So that can be really especially useful, I think, if you are maybe wanting to quote or refer to a particular section of the video. If you create a clip, that just might make it a little bit easier for you to be going on with or sharing those resources. So do bear that in mind. So we've looked at some of the ways that you might run a search. We've also looked at some of the ways that you might use filters, but let's just take another pause there and see if there's any questions at all. Are there any questions? Okay, see anything in the chat box? No. Okay, I hope that means that everyone's okay so far. So I've just come back to the main homepage, and I just want to talk a little bit now about some of the research tools that we've got available. So the final sort of section. If I just hover over research tools at the top here, you can see that you've got 4 research tools available to you. Now, I want to start with which stats test at the bottom, because a few people, when they shared their research challenges with me, told me that it was issues with quantitative or statistical data. So this is a test that might be able to help you overcome some of those challenges. So one of the ways this helps is by asking you a series of 5 or 6 questions about your research data, and then it will suggest a statistical test that it thinks might be the most useful for you. So if I answer the question here, what is the purpose of my analysis? I'm just going to select some random answers here just to demonstrate how this works. So I'm going to say to look for an association. We've then got, what do you want to do with your data? So it's, do I want to measure the strength of an association between 2 variables, or predict values of an outcome variable? Again, not being a strong point, I'll just select any. What measurement level are your variables? I'm just going to click a random one again. And we can see that after 3 questions, sometimes it can be up to 6, it suggested that it thinks Spearman correlation might be the most useful for me. So then what you can do is, if I just copy this here, so you have got some links to some resources here, but what you can do is, if I copy that and go back to the home page, I can then put that in as a search term. I can just copy and paste it in there, run a search, Spearman correlation. And then, based on the answers that I gave in the Which Stats Test research tool, I've now really quickly got some ways of learning more about Spearman correlation. So I can look through those and see if any of those might be useful. So I can apply some of the filters, content available to me, etc., and see if any of those might be useful for me to be looking at. So I think a really useful tool if you're involved in quantitative or statistical data. We also have reading lists. So you may recall that when I was creating my reading list earlier, that I had the option to choose between it being public or private. So one of the areas that we have is this reading list feature here. It's like a sub homepage, I suppose. So anyone in the world that has a subscription to Sage Research Methods, if they choose to leave their reading list as public, this is where it will go. So potentially you could see reading lists from someone who was on the other side of the world, potentially. So really, it's quite interesting, and it can be a nice place to go if you want to maybe get ideas or inspiration for your own reading lists or material. So do have a look at that if you wanted to. But do bear in mind that these aren't monitored by anyone at Sage. So you know, it could be a first year undergraduate, or it might be a really well-known professor, but it might be a nice place to go if you just wanted to get some ideas. The third research tool that we'll look at is Methods Map then. So if I open this up, you can see that I'm taken to the page here. Just let me refresh. Oh, refresh that a second. Sorry for being a bit slow. Okay, so essentially methods map, if I just remind you again, when I clicked on the browse option here, I could browse by topic. If I click on any of these links here from the home page, it's going to take me through to this research tool here called the methods map. Now, essentially the methods map is a visual tool that demonstrates how different research methods concepts and topics are related. So you can see here that we've got research methods in the green circle in the middle of the screen. And then to the right hand side, we've got a number of narrower terms. So if I just go to view more and expand that menu out, you can see that these are some broad stages of a typical research project that I might have to go through. So if I was interested in any of these, so I think I'm going to go with research design because that's sort of related to kind of formulating and designing a interesting and useful research question. This provides like a framework that you might want to apply to your research. You can see that that now updates to become my central term in the green circle. And then narrower terms, if I go to view more, these are all different styles or frameworks related to how to structure or design your research. So essentially, the further down you go into these narrower terms, the more detailed or specialized your kind of search is or browsing is becoming. So you can see that above each of the lines here, you've got a definition of what that particular concept is. So it's not too scary for you if you're just sort of investigating things for the first time. I think sometimes there's quite a lot of new words, topics that you've not heard of before related to research. And I think this is where something like the methods map could be really, really useful for you to have a look at. You can just click around and explore lots of different options. So you can see here, if I click on, I'll just click on, let's go with Delphi method. I can click on Delphi method as a research design framework. I can then read the definition of what that is and see whether it's something that I might want to consider or look at. If it's not, I can really easily see, you can see here, broader terms is populated. I can click to go back to research design, say view more, and then I can maybe have a look at another one. So I could go with, let's go with case study research. That now becomes my central concept, and then I can read the definition of what case study research is. And I can also see that it's related to a number of narrower terms, but as well as being a type of research design or framework, case study research is also a form of data collection, qualitative data collection. So again, I can start clicking around. So you can see how easy it is to use. And I really like it. I wish there'd been something like this around when I was studying, because I think it helps. It's really easy to navigate. It's not too scary. So you can use it on its own, but you'll notice that if I just go back to where I was before, in fact, I'm just going to click on a random one here. Let's go with, I'm going to case study research. You can see that we've got this link here called search all content. So you've noticed that I've just been clicking around within the methods map research tool itself. But if I wanted to build my knowledge and understanding with other resources, you've got this link here, search all content. And if I click on that link, it's going to take me through to some research elsewhere. That will then help me learn more about case study research. So you can see it's almost run the search for me there. And there we've got lots of resources on case study research. And then by applying some of these filters, that might help me narrow down the number of results that I'm getting at the top. But that's a way of finding resources without even having to run your own kind of keyword search. If I just go into one of these resources as well, you'll notice that methods map is also one of these options here on the right hand side. So if I'd run a search, I can also go straight into the methods map from a resource as well. So it's really easy to click between different sections of the Sage Research Methods platform so that you can learn you can see how things are related, further information and all that sort of thing without even having to run your own search. So I think it's quite a nice tool to be aware of if you're either really new to research methods, maybe haven't done research for a long time, or maybe you just want to see what other options are available. So you might have decided that you really want to use, I don't know, interviews as your data collection method, but actually there might be a data collection method that's more suitable for the research question that you've designed. So this will help you maybe explore other options that you hadn't thought of before. So do have a look at that if you were interested. And the last thing that I'll show you then is our Project Planner research tool. So these are all accessed just by hovering over research tools at the top. And Project Planner, really, I'm not supposed to have a favorite part, but it probably is my favorite part of the entire platform. I just think it's so useful, and I really wish I'd had something like this myself when I was at university. So essentially, Project Planner is a research tool that walks you, the researcher, through the research process from start to finish in these logical steps here. So you can see we've got these different research stages here. Down the left hand side. So you can see here that we've got a whole section on developing a research question. So if I click on that section, you can see here it's really easy for me to see where I am in that stage in the research project. So the further down you go, the more further along your research project process you are, essentially. So these are sort of in order in terms of how you might come across them. But each section comes with a number of, I suppose, considerations or smaller questions or steps that you might need to go through before you can successfully move on to the next stage in your research project. So you can see here, if I open up, how do I develop a research question? So this is a really short entry. So it says there are 4 possible approaches, but they're not mutually exclusive. You may want to work on a general description. You may want to test a hypothesis. What else? So that it really depends on what you're trying to do. So 4 possible approaches. And when you've decided what approach you're going to take or what you're interested in actually doing, I think that will then help decide what you're actually trying to do. So most research questions will be like, how does something work? Why is something the way it is? And obviously, depending on what you want to find out, that will then help you kind of decide whether it's a how question, a what question, or a why question. And often those things can be really, really different. So think about what you're actually trying to do related to your topic. So that might be something to look at. Oh, actually, I should say as well, in here, in these as well, you've got a lot of live links. So these will link you to other sections or other resources. So related to statistical methods, for example. So have a look at that if you wanted to learn a bit more. Let's open up another one of these sections. When will I know what my research question is? Again, a really short entry, but I think for you guys that were maybe a bit concerned about how to actually start that process, you can see that I searched for research question. There's at least 3 or 4 chapters in that search that I did. I think Project Planner might also be a really good starting point for you as well if you were wanting to know how to formulate that research question. So how do I know if it's suitable? Really short again, but you can see a lot of these entries have options to find out more. So if I search for this, click on this one, the magnifying glass icon tells me that will take me through to some search results elsewhere. So we've got types of research questions just there. And it will tell you all those different things that the questions will help you to answer. Why begins with because. So everything's sort of interrelated. So definitely have a look at that if you wanted to. I'm just going to find another example. So you can see here, the tick box, find out more, will take you to a different section within Project Planner. Anything that has a magnifying glass icon, that will take you through to some more search results. So if I click on this one as an example, this will take me through to search results elsewhere that will help me learn more about the research question. So that will be a similar set of search results to when I ran my own search. But again, you can see how you don't even have to be fully aware of what you're interested in looking at yourself. You will just be able to sort of find that find that by clicking on some of those options there. So really, I think really great. So what you can do is just read. I mean, I went straight to developing a researchable question, and I was able to just read that, but you can just read the sections that you're needing the most support with, the challenges that you're facing. But it's also a really great research guide or research framework. I think it can help overcome a specific challenge that you might be facing, but you may also want support all the way through, so that you're making sure that you're covering everything that you need to cover, that you also are not having to go back and repeat something because you might have missed it. But also I think it really helps break that down, so it's a lot more manageable. Sometimes it can be quite overwhelming to know how to get started, and I think this is where Project Planner can be really helpful. So that really covers everything that I wanted to go over with you this morning. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to spend some time on an activity? Are there any questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself or put them to me in the chat box. Are there any questions? No? Okay. So what I'd like to do in the final sort of section then is spend around 20 minutes you guys having a look on your own computers, using all the skills and techniques that I've shown you in the last hour or so to find a resource that you really like. So what I'd like you to do is think about any research challenges that you might be facing. So maybe some of the challenges that you shared with me in the chat box earlier, and use those challenges to construct a search strategy or the search terms that you might type into the search box, or even as a way of browsing, and see what resources you can find. And I think after like 20 minutes, it'd be really great if we all sort of came back into the main room here, so that we're able to share some of those resources that we found. So I'd like you to take a note of the resource type, write down why you like it, and also how you think it might be useful for you in your own research. So we'll spend around, let's say till 11:30, having a look at that, and then we'll come back and spend another 5 or 10 minutes just discussing some of those resources that we found. So I hope that's okay with everyone. I'll give you sort of kind of 2-minute warning when it's time to come back. So we'll spend 15 minutes on that, and we'll come back at 11:30. So if anyone's got any questions, I'll make sure that I'm available. Otherwise, we'll have a bit of silence so that people can put those skills into practice if they would like to. The skills that I showed you. Does anyone have any questions, or does anyone want to share any of the resources that they found that would be really useful? You can unmute yourself if you want to speak, but you can also type any comments or feedback into the chat box as well. Someone's actually just asked me privately, could I please say something about reading lists and how these are built, posted and updated? They seem to be an interesting source within the database, although their quality tends to vary. So yes, so I mentioned earlier that we have the reading list. In fact, what I'll do is I'll share my screen again. Just bear with me whilst I get that set up. Share screen. So I've mentioned that you can get to the reading lists by clicking on the reading lists here. So the reading list area is basically a space where anyone in the world who has an active subscription to Sage research methods through their university can leave their publicly created lists. So these might be lists that you have created as a researcher. They might be created by someone who's completely new to research methods, or a faculty member who may be working on it. So they're not curated. They're not anything that we ask people to create. This is just sort of where they all end up, regardless of who made them and regardless of whether they're complete. So they're not actually anything that we've sort of put together ourselves at Sage. This area isn't monitored by anyone at Sage. So it's anyone who's set up a profile and has chosen to leave those as public. So they're not a kind of curated resource. I think that might be sort of what you meant by your question. Yeah, that's why the quality does vary. Some of them are comprehensive. They might have 10 to 15 resources. Some might only have one resource on them. So they're not monitored, they're not curated. We don't commission them, if that makes sense. That it's just sort of a holding area for any publicly created lists. I hope that answers your question to the person who put that to me. Yes, thank you. Are there any other comments, or does anyone want to share any of the resources that they found? Anything that surprised them, anything they liked, anything you didn't like? Okay. Well, I guess if no one wants to ask any questions or wants to share the resource, I totally understand it can be quite scary having to do that online. Then I really understand and appreciate that. So if there's no further questions, or if no one wants to share the resources that they found, what I will do is just reshare my screen just to say thank you for listening. I hope that's been useful for you. My contact details are just there on the screen. So if you want to make a note of my email address, you're more than welcome. So if you want to send me your feedback via email privately, that's absolutely fine. Or if you want to share any of the resources that you found, that's great as well. I hope the session has been useful and given you some ideas to help you overcome some of the challenges that we discussed at the beginning. And maybe, as I say, if you have any questions after you've had a bit more time to explore, then please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. But otherwise, thank you and enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Thank you.